Thank you, Mayor. We're going to have a performance report from our Utilities Department.
Thank you, Mr. Olson.
Mayor and Council, Brian Butcher. I'm the Assistant Director of Treatment for the Utilities Department. December 23rd of last year, we consolidated what was the water, wastewater, and stormwater departments into what is now the Utilities Department. Of that department, we have two kind of major branches. One is the Maintenance of Line branch that covers the lines and the infrastructure that take all of the water and wastewater to the treatment facilities. The other is the treatment arm. The treatment arm is responsible for the water and wastewater treatment plants, the dams that we operate, as well as the Mary Roads pipeline, along with the wastewater lift stations, the stormwater pump stations, and the water department's ground storage and elevated storage pump stations. To start off, I'll draw your attention to the operational profile up in the top right corner. We have 100 wastewater lift stations throughout the city of varying size, 6 wastewater treatment plants that I think most of you have seen. We want to keep on here a note that we have all of our water supply, our drinking water supply, is surface water as of today. Daily treatment capacities from the two different water versus wastewater, we have the ability to treat up to 42 million gallons a day of wastewater, and we have the ability to treat up to 161 million gallons a day of water. Moving over to the baseline information, there's a couple of key things on here that I think are important to note today. Starting with the second line, the total million gallons of water treated annually. I don't know if I can mark on this, but you can see right here that, well, it's this line right here. Well, nope, there we go. That we have trended down over the last 3 years. Going back to FY 11-12, we were treating about 70 million gallons a day, and over the last 3 years, we're down to almost 64.7 this year. Another thing that's important to note on this, if you go down about 3 lines to the total wastewater treated, the total wastewater treated has not changed and has not gone down. Now, we attribute that to the reduction in water treated is hopefully the discretionary use, the uses that we're trying to reduce with our conservation measures and with our drought stages. Moving on down from there, if I can move down so I can get this thing to scroll down. Here we go. We're reworking our goals. As you can imagine, whenever you go and you consolidate these teams, it's very important to evaluate the goals, evaluate the metrics that you're going to use to measure performance. So some of these are kind of works in progress. Some of them have some importance that we'd like to hit on today. If you look at the second one, the second measurable, which is the number of complaints of low water pressure, and you look on there and you see the 413 versus the 401. We attributed that to the beginning of this fiscal year as well as this time of year. If you looked yesterday, that was 411. There is some increase in pressure concerns whenever we switch to the once-a-week watering. The areas that are allowed to water once a week use a lot more water than they normally do, and because of that, we have consistent pressure issues. And what we're doing right now is trying to identify those areas, make improvements, and hopefully reduce that number in the future. Moving down a little bit further, if you look under the treat wastewater, you'll see 2 metrics that both basically look like they say the same thing. The bottom one says percent of water quality samples taken at plants meeting TCEQ standards, and it's a percentage. And the top one says number of days the plants are out of compliance. The bottom one is the historic measure that we've used. We as a department are no longer focused on trying to report the ones where we meet. We're going to focus on showing the number of times where we don't meet and eliminating that number. Ultimately, the goal is to get that to 0 and then to change this percentage to say times whenever we reach 50% of the limit, when we're approaching the limit. With that, I'll open it up. Those are the main highlights of the CPR for treatment. Does anybody have any questions?
Mrs. McIntyre?
Thank you. So going to the number of days plants are out of compliance, it looks like a pretty significant increase from 12-13 to 13-14. Is that just because of what we're measuring, or What would have created that increase?
It's interesting that you asked that, and if I can click on this chart, I'll show you kind of how we're doing here. There's a few things that led to that this fiscal year. The beginning of the fiscal year in October, we got a new ammonia limit at OSO. The ammonia limit at OSO we struggled with until January. We haven't broken ammonia or enteric oxide at OSO since January of this year, and that was all attributed to working the bugs out of our new breakpoint chlorination system there at OSO. In addition to that, we had some problems at Allison at the beginning of the year that were tied to improvements that were going on with and water quality coming into the plant that we think we've addressed. And the third major thing is January of this year, Greenwood went from historically being a plant without an enteric oxide limit to a plant with an enteric oxide limit. And we've struggled with that, but we have adjusted our cleaning, adjusted our maintenance to a point where we think we've gotten it. And just this month, we had 0 violations at any of the plants. We've been on that trend for the last couple months.
That's great. 0 violations is a good number to have.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for explaining those changes.
I will say there's been a lot of protocol efficiencies and best practices that have incorporated in the last couple of years, and I'm very mindful of that, and our taxpayers are benefiting from that. So thank you very much for your leadership, and appreciate the report.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Olson?
Mayor, next we'll turn to our city attorney. He's been requested by council to cover one of the council policies and discuss it. And then when he finishes that, I do have a couple of other comments to make.
Thank you. Mr. Knight?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to make a couple of comments about the rules of decorum in council and remind everyone that a city council meeting is what is known in the courts as a limited public forum. The discussion, the issues are the business of the city in general. City councils are entitled to adopt rules that limit the issues presented, represented, and discussed to city business. These may include rules that limit distractions during meetings. A great many city councils, the courts, the Texas legislature, and many other public bodies have adopted rules of decorum. In this day and age, my experience is they're simply necessary. The 2nd and the 11th Federal Circuit Court of Appeals have upheld rules of decorum very similar to ours. In addition, one of those dealt with wearing a political sign on a t-shirt. However, we try to not regulate more than is necessary. Among the others, the rules of decorum provide that political advertisements of any type, disruptive banners, placards, signs, or posters are prohibited. These rules are currently under review by my office. We anticipating offering some minor adjustments, etc., to the council in the near future. In the interim, we're requesting voluntary compliance. Simply voluntary compliance with the rules of decorum as you would in any courtroom, any legislative body, or any other public meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, do you have that actual ordinance in front of you?
I have a portion of it, Mayor. It's
If you could read that portion. I don't know how many years back it goes. That would be also a curiosity.
well,
I think it was in place well before I was on.
the actual part that we're dealing with is section 5 of and it's 5, one that's pertinent here is 5G, and it reads in full, political advertisements of any type, disruptive banners, placards, signs, or posters are prohibited. This prohibition does not prohibit maps, photographs, drawings, plats, artist renderings or conceptualizations, charts, graphs, signs, etc., including basically those things necessary from someone to make a presentation on city business. The city council, by majority vote, can make a final determination as to whether any particular material is useful and necessary, and that determination is final. Primarily, I think the part I was addressing is the first sentence. Obviously, there's some limitation on people making presentations on subject matters and business before the council, but the primary issue there is public advertisements supporting candidates for office, whether they're on this council, state office, or any other position, is what's covered by the first sentence of that section.
Okay. So this is limited to candidates, but not issues?
No,
Okay.
no, it's my opinion, the way it's written is not intended because a city issue is before the council, they can come forward and talk, but there also, you get into issues about placards, signs, etc. And that's one of the reasons I want to, if you will, edit these just a bit and make it more clear. It should apply to everything across the board. If people are waving signs that prevent people from seeing what's going on, if they're doing, we just need to be a little more clear. I think the average citizen might not be able to look at these.
In the rules of decorum that other governing bodies have espoused and codified had been challenged in the past by the appellate court, and you're saying that they have been upheld?
The two cases of record, the federal appellate circuit courts, the level just below the U.S. Supreme Court, have upheld the cases enforcing these ordinances when presented with
Okay.
that issue.
Okay. Mrs. McIntyre?
Yes, Mr. Knight, thank you for looking into this. I would like to see us focus, if we're going to put some attention on this, on the part that says those things which are disruptive, and to really look at what the purpose is whenever we pass any ordinance or we really start to debate something. And I can see where some things, particularly signs that are in front of people, would be disruptive. I always think of is it Good Morning America or the Today Show, where people stand behind to get in the camera and stuff like that, as being disruptive, whether it's because we're focused on what's going on at the podium or those watching at home are. And so what I would like to see is not a benchmark what the appellate courts will uphold, but what we are actually expending resources on. And I would like to see almost a compromise type of thing to look at how to minimize distraction, and obviously looking at things that are held in front of other people. But I think these first 3 rows here behind the podium should be reserved for those that are making presentations, or staff members are making presentations for council, and I think that minimizes distraction because you're not going to have people playing to the council or to an audience from that area. And I think that would not cause any conversation about infringing First Amendment rights, whether or not an appellate court has upheld it. To even engage in that conversation takes the focus away from the business that we should be having at hand. And so I would like to see something that really just looks at a policy or procedure that minimizes disruption, whether it's from signs in front of people or what's going on in the area behind the podium.
Mr. Olson?
Are we still on this subject, or are we
Yes, we
moving
are.
on? I'm not sure I have anything to add to the comments that have been made so far.
I misunderstood. I thought you said you wanted to add some comments.
No, when we're through with this subject, I have some additional things to say.
Oh, I apologize. Okay.
No, it's all right.
Is there any other comments? Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Mr. Olson?
Okay, thank you. 2 additional comments, Mayor. First of all, I think the council is aware that we have been, we presented a report to the City Council about, I want to say a year ago, maybe a little bit less than that, regarding the evaluation of our communications department, and made some recommendations on restructuring and restaffing and refocusing that area. We've gone through a selection process to select leadership for that department, and at the end of the day, we have offered the job to Kim Womack, who has been with us for 8 years already, and have great confidence that she can lead the department with its new structure and new emphasis and new goals in the right direction. And I just want to make the council and the public aware of that selection and appointment, which became effective yesterday.
Congratulations to Mrs. Womack.
I believe she's probably in the back running the,
Council meeting
council meeting.
with Mr. De Leon.
And the next thing I wanted to mention, there was kind of a happy article that came out this past week. The U.S. National Bureau of Economic Research found that Corpus Christi is among the top 10 happiest cities in the United States of America. So everybody should be smiling really big over that.
Well, what's really amazing is for Corpus Christi to be the only city in the state of Texas throughout the whole nation to be in the top 10.
Yes.
And that was came out of Harvard, if there is any question on the credibility. And so we're very appreciative of that notice. And we certainly have, that's a good thing.
Well, I don't know about the rest of the population here, but I'm very happy to be here.
And I am very happy to say I was born and raised in Corpus Christi, Texas. Mr. Knight, no matter what we end up with as far as it on that ordinance, bottom line, the whole point about the appellate court is that any ordinance that we came up with, whether it's with that we tighten up, and if it's going to be a focus on signs and disruption, including those, were upheld through the appellate court. Is that correct?
Yes, the courts in the cases and the opinions given to date are reasonable restrictions. You can require the people present to limit themselves to the business of the city with no distractions, and that's a reasonable limitation on freedom of speech.
Okay. Thank you very much, and we are going to happily move forward